Hello and welcome back to Homebrew EDH, where I take you through my personal commander decks, how they work, and how they win. This episode is Hallar, the Firefletcher. She costs 1 red-green for a 3/3 legendary elf archer with trample that reads, whenever you cast a spell, if that spell was kicked, put a +1/+1 counter on Hallar the Firefletcher, then Hallar deals damage equal to the number of +1/+1 counters on it to each opponent. So I built this deck around kicked spells, putting +1/+1 counters on our creatures, and burning our opponents down. With that, let's get into the episode. The first piece for this episode are the kicked spells, and some creatures that take advantage of that besides Hallar herself. First we have Scorch Rider, which is 3 in a red for a 4/3 human warrior with kicker for 1 in red, so you can pay that extra. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, it gains haste until end of turn. Cinderclasm, which is 1 in a red, we can kick it for an extra red. Normally it would deal 1 damage to each creature. If it was kicked, it deals 2. Gnarlid Colony is 1 in a green for a 2/2 beast with kicker for 2 in a green extra. If it was kicked when it enters the battlefield, it gets 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and it also reads each creature with a +1/+1 counter on it that we control has trample. Taunting Arbor Mage is 2 in a green for a 2/3 elf wizard with kicker for 3. Pay the 3 extra. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, all creatures able to block target creature this turn do so. And we also run Vastwood Surge, Bloodstone Goblin, and Vine Gecko. Now let's take a look at these a little bit closer. So Vastwood Surge, on a closer look, is 3 in a green with kicker for 4, so it would cost you 8 mana total to cast this. It reads, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. If this spell was kicked, put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. This works quite well with Hallar and the other kicker creature that gives trample. Next one with a closer look will be Vine Gecko, which actually reduces our kicker cost spells. It's 1 in a green for a 2/2. The first kick spell you cast each turn costs 1 less to cast. And whenever you cast a kicked spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Vine Gecko. So it itself will get bigger. And our last one to take a closer look at is Bloodstone Goblin. Bloodstone Goblin is 1 in a red for a 2/2 Goblin Warrior. Whenever you cast a spell, if that spell was kicked, Bloodstone Goblin gets +1/+1 and gains menace until end of turn. On to our next category is +1/+1 counters to pump up Hallar to make the damage worth doing. Iron Shell Beetle is 1 in a green for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Stony Strength is 1 green for an instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control and untap it. Biogenic Upgrade is 4 green for a sorcery that reads distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 target creatures you control, and then double the number of the counters on those creatures. And then Scale the Heights is 2 in a green for a sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature. You gain 2 life. You may play an extra land this turn and draw a card, all of which aimed at Hallar to give all of the counters to the creature where it matters. The next category I'm going to kind of combine 2, as this video will be a little bit shorter because the deck is a little bit simpler than some of the other decks I've done. So with Ramp, it's fairly straightforward. We've got Cultivate, which is a staple, and Rift Sour, which is 2 in a green for a 1/3 Elf Druid. That taps to add 1 mana of any color, or you can suspend it for 2 turns by paying a green, exiling it, and waiting a couple of turns. In terms of card draw, we have Thrill of Possibility and Harmonize, which are red and green card draw. You kind of see them everywhere. 1 in a red for Thrill of Possibility, instant speed, discard a card, draw 2 cards. Harmonize is 2 green for a sorcery. It just reads draw 3 cards. The last category for this slightly shorter episode is Graveyard Recursion. Now, it's not anything like Golgari or anything of the sort, but we do have some in green with Marasa Sproutling, Pulse of Marasa, and Regrowth. Now let's take a look at these. Marasa Sproutling is 2 in a green for a 3/3 Plant Elemental with kicker for 1 in a green. That reads, when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, return target card with kicker ability from your graveyard to your hand, which lets us reuse those powerful spells that we may have cast earlier in the game. Pulse of Marasa is 2 in a green for an instant. Return a target creature or land card from your graveyard to its owner's hand. You gain 6 life. and Regrowth, which is kind of a staple at this point. 1 and a green for sorcery. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Homebrew EDH. If you enjoyed, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe if you would like to see more like this. As always, the deck list will be in the description with all the cards I did not include in this video. Constructive feedback and deck suggestions are always welcome in the comments. I read all of them. And until I see you guys in the next one, take it easy and enjoy your stay.